familiar with that nervousness and you do it more, the easier it gets, and you're able to public speak in meetings and other different things in your career. So we're looking for speakers, low pressure environment. We'd love to have you. All right, so Microsoft Ignite is currently happening right now. Is in Chicago. It is sold out, but there is online. So if you go to ignite.microsoft.com, and if you go there, you will see the virtual information to be able to watch some stuff online. So there's a lot of cool stuff going on. If you're on LinkedIn and watching your feeds, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of good updates that are there. One of the biggest updates that I saw is SQL databases in Microsoft Fabric is now in preview. So that's really cool. And then as just announced, like probably 30 minutes before this call, you can now there are write back capabilities of Fabric directly from Power BI. So originally, typically you either have to do an extension, download something, or use a Power App to be able to write back directly from Power BI. But it looks like they're going to open up this capability right back to Fabric. My assumption, just based on some of the comments that I read, is that you would probably write back to the SQL database that is going to live on Fabric. And typically, a use case for write back capabilities is if you are doing, let's say, budget and forecasting. So if you have actuals information and you want to dynamically change your budget to see where you're at in your forecasting, that's when you will write back to a database to show those results in real time onto your database. But write back is a really awesome and huge capability. So that'd be really cool to see how that actually goes into play. So just to quickly show that, if you go to the website here, I'm sorry, that's Fabric. I had it. Well, I had an Ignite. So if you go to Ignite, it'll be there. So go to the website for Microsoft Ignite, and then you'll be able to see this. This is the latest update that I was just talking about. This is SQL database in Microsoft Fabric. This is a free preview. So this gives you all the information, all the updates in here. Yeah, a lot of different stuff you can use it for, and you can check it out. And it's query all the same way as Azure SQL database. So if you query in the same way as you do Azure with SSMS, my assumption is you probably do the same thing with Fabric, the SQL bases on top of it. And then you'll see a new icon here that says SQL database preview and a lot of different stuff. So there's an article out here. It was just posted on the 19th. So there's a lot of good stuff out there. So check it out when you get a chance. And then, as I mentioned on here, this is a guy I saw on LinkedIn. But basically, another exciting update from Ignite right back to Fabric databases, one of the most impactful features, yada, yada, yada. But basically, I don't know what the screenshot is, but it looks like you can probably write back in here, this area, I'm assuming. And then this will write back to your Fabric instance, and then it will pull into your report. Haven't really done a deep dive into it. I just saw it on my LinkedIn feed right before this call, but capabilities of it. And I'm sure there's plenty more Fabric announcements that are going out, but this is one of the big ones that I saw. So this is awesome. Be on the lookout for it, and definitely check it out. All right, as far as community initiatives, as I mentioned before, the call for speakers are still going on. If you want to speak at a SQL Saturday, the option is still available. So SQL Saturday Atlanta BI edition is March 8, 2025, and it will be at the Innovation Academy in Alpharetta, Georgia. I don't think they put pricing on there, but typically it's about $10 to $15. I think they're still trying to work out the details for the hotel and sponsorships and all the stuff that comes along with it. But mark this date on your calendars. The Atlanta one is always a good time. A lot of great content, a lot of great speakers. I plan to be there. Hopefully I'll speak. That'd be great. But I'll be there down March 8th for this one. Microsoft Fabric Community Conference will be March 31st through April 2nd. And you have the options to have a pre-conference and post-conference sessions as well. This will be year 2 for the Microsoft Fabric Community Conference. So I anticipate this one growing pretty rapidly. This is at the MGM, and the tickets are on sale now, as well as speaker submissions. So if you're thinking about speaking, go ahead and submit that and put that out there for that. And then also there is a discount code, I believe, whenever you log into Power BI desktop or somewhere. I think there's like a $150 off coupon that you can use for the conference itself. So go ahead and check it out. And then I just booked my room earlier this week. So there's still plenty of rooms at the MGM. So as you're thinking about your budgets and different things from your corporate instances, try and put this one down to see if they will pay for this one. But I believe this conference is going to be really good, especially if you're going to do more stuff in the Fabric community, in the Fabric world. I think there's going to be a lot of good content here. All right. So with that, I'll take a pause or either let you all put it in the chat. But any job opportunities, is anybody hiring? Is anybody looking? I'll pause here for a couple minutes and wait to see if there's anybody hiring.
Hey guys, this is Pedro Medina with Haystack Data Solutions. I do have several positions open for BI developer with solid Fabric expertise, sort of end to end, can do the back end stuff, but can also build out some decent reports. So if anyone is looking, this is a remote contract position. Just email me at pedro.medina@haystackdata.com. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Pedro. Appreciate that. Do you mind putting your email in the chat too, please?
For sure. Thank you.
Thanks. Yes, if you all are looking, definitely reach out to Pedro and connect with him online. And then if you have any opportunities that you are needing, let us know and we can send out an email afterwards as well. So we'll go ahead and continue on. All right, so what's new in Power BI? There's so much stuff going on. It's crazy to keep up with. But from Power BI perspective, to not be separated from Fabric, specifically from the visual perspective, there's this new Vision Hub repository thing that I just found online that was released. And basically, it's from the team who are working on the native visuals. And they're basically put together a roadmap of what visuals they're working on, where they're at, how they're scaling it, and the process of it. So I'll walk through that on this call. A lot of good stuff with Copilot and AI. A lot of good things we're reporting. Saw visual calculations are doing a lot of great stuff. Small multiples for the new card visual is really cool. I'll do a quick demo of that. And then there's a new visual text slicer that I'll do a demo of. From modeling perspective, the DAX query has some really cool stuff. Semantic modeling using Visual Studio Code. Oh, that's pretty cool. And then data connectivity. Snowflake is continuing to be a prominent player in the data warehouse element. So a lot of good connector updates there, a lot of Fabric Git updates, and then a lot of good visuals, custom visual stuff out there as well. And then there's a new book from Alex. I can't think of his last name, but new book, Data Visualization with Power BI. So it had to be a pretty good book for them to actually feature it. It's on the support site, so go check it out. It's on there for Amazon. So if you are looking for a book on data visualization in Power BI, go ahead and check it out. And then there's support for other BI languages settings with Paginated Report. So to walk through what I was just talking about, the first thing is this Vision Hub. So if I can show you what that is. Okay, so this is the Vision Hub. So basically, this is the Core Visuals Vision Board. And the Core Visuals team at Microsoft, I think it's like 10 or 11 people or what have you, but they're really are doing a lot of great stuff where they're trying to focus on some of the native visuals, doing some of the cool things that you might see in other products. So stuff that you might see in just different BI tools. They're trying to implement a lot of that in the Power BI with native visuals and not having to do a lot of hacking and a lot of DAX and a lot of different things. So with the native visuals, we can see here that they, on the left side, they have the different type of visuals that they want to see. And then within here, if you click on it, you can see the status of it. So for this example, you have the new card visual, which came out sometime last year. But then you also see the total votes from the community. And then if you want to vote on it as well, it'll take you there. Then you have reference label, and then you can see, like I said, the timeline of where it was at, labels, and then was it completed. And so for here, you can kind of just walk through different things and see what's in development and what's not in development. And I think it's really cool how they have it categorized as well. So this is really cool just to see, like, man, you know, what's on the roadmap for the native visuals team and what isn't. Another one here is the gauge visual. So again, you see, like, you know, it's a new card visual and then it's available for development, but doesn't necessarily mean it's in development. But I think what they're trying to do with all this is capture, like, what does the community want to see? How many votes does it have? And then maybe that will take, you know, priority over certain other things. Eric Johnson, real quick, do you mind going on mute? Unless you have a question.
I'm sorry. My computer's messing up.
Oh, no worries, man. So then we have thresholds and then Cartesians, parts of wholes, so on and so forth. You all get the gist of it, where you all have the ability to look at what's coming in the roadmap, see what's happening, and then where it's at. So I think it's really cool. Beyond anything else, I think the actual dashboard itself is like really clean and precise, and I love the navigation on it. So it can even give you like ideas of how to create your own dashboards and how to improve what you're building out as well. But it gives you a lot of information here. So really cool. So definitely check it out. It's on the Core Visuals LinkedIn page. They'll probably email it out, and then we can share it as well. We can add a link to it to our meetup page. Another thing on here. Okay, so if I'm thinking about certain things that I want to do, so I want to show you the small multiples preview in here. So if you're not using a new Marks card, which came out, I think it's still in preview, might not be, but this is a new Marks card. That's the KPI card, I should say, that allows you to do a lot of cool things. So the latest update that just came out is the ability to do small multiples. So if you don't know what small multiple is, it allows you to break out different things by different dimensions or different categories. So now in this example, if I wanted to, I have my KPI card, but let's say I want to break this out and I don't want to do necessarily 8 different cards because I want to break it out by the different countries. What I could do now with the small multiples is actually just drag my dimension on here, and it would now do the calculations that I have on here. So total sales, previous year sales, year-over-year growth. And if I just drag my country on the small multiples, now it's automatically going to do that calculation for me in the area that I want, versus me having to do this 6 different times, filter it out, do all the things that come along with it. So small multiples, I think, is going to make life a lot easier when you're trying to do like a bunch of KPI cards by different breakout at once. Another thing as well as you can do is you can come in here and actually click on the layout of it. So if you, right now, a single column, but if you want to do a single row for your KPIs, you can do that. And then you see how it's just grouped together by your category that you brought in here. So if you come in here and say, hey, I want country, this is great. But if I take this out and I want to do by product, then I can do it by product as well. You also have the ability to change how many you see. So if you want to do 10, you can do that. So similar, capabilities as other ones, but now unless you just do that, and then it's dynamically doing that calculation for you based on that breakout. So the small multiple update is going to save a bunch of time, I believe, from a development standpoint of being able to, get things out faster. So this is a really cool one that came out. Another one that just came out is the text slicer. So basically, this allows you to search for what you're wanting to filter by. So even though you might have the search capabilities here and you have to like type a country name and then you have to click it, I think the biggest difference, just off of like really 5 seconds of playing around with this, is that if I search the Canada, or if I know like the first 3 letters of what I'm looking for, I could just type in can, and then it will automatically filter down. Now, what I don't know what it does is it's not necessarily displaying what I want it to say. So if there are multiple countries or multiple things with that first 3 digits that I'm typing, I don't know if it's filtering, both of those at the same time, or I don't know what the lookup is doing. So if I just did, AN, is it doing Canada? Okay, so it is. So, depending on what you're searching for, if you just did AN, it's going to look at the country and it's going to find everything within that for you and then type it. So kind of a lookup wildcard value functionality. I believe there's way more documentation and detail there. Could be something that's useful and cool, but this is one of the latest updates that just came out, and it gives you the ability to kind of just filter and stuff. So if you go this route, I would definitely have like a filter icon or some type of text field that shows, what it is exactly that you're filtering. That way your audience can know, based on my selection, these are the 3 things that have been picked. So, but these are 2 new updates that I like. I think they're really cool. And so I would say check them out. All right, what's new in Fabric Part 1, introducing OneLake catalog. So a lot of good stuff with OneLake, stuff that's going on, a lot of integration with GitHub. That stuff is just, ramping up. They're doing a lot of good stuff with the APIs, a lot of good stuff with the branch control and just, really making it a programmatic approach. OneLake external data sharing is now generally available. A lot of good stuff with Mirroring. Mirroring is awesome. There's a lot of good things out there that have been updates. I expect to see this constantly growing with the Mirroring and getting the information back. Data warehouse code query performance improvement and service principal support for Fabric Data Warehouse, which is huge. And then data engineering, got a notebook display, chart upgrades, Fabric APIs, and libraries are now supported in the Fabric environments. All right, real-time intelligence, a lot of good stuff here, so which should lead into our conversation, but in just and process, a lot of good streaming stuff, a lot of updates here. New Fabric events is there, monitoring experience on connector sources with runtime logs is there. And then Data Factory continues to grow and expand. Table and partition refreshes added to semantic model refresh. Import and export your Fabric Data Factory pipeline, which is awesome. So if you're using pipelines, you want to export it, import it, you can do that as well on here. A lot of new connectors. I expect to see a whole bunch of connectors continually available for Data Factory. More CI/CD, upsert, and overwrite. So again, a lot of good capabilities here within Data Factory. And then Data Flows now support CI/CD preview. So check it out if you're like a person who's trying to get into the CI/CD world. A lot of good stuff that Fabric is doing to implement that. Excuse me. All right, so what's new in Excel? For Excel, Windows, and Mac, you have the group by and pivot by functions are now readily available. So I can do a quick demo on that. And then Excel for Windows, you have the focus cell, color picker, new templates, and draw and hold gesture, which is available right now for insiders. So if you're an insider, you have access to this. But one thing that I saw that was really cool is the group by and pivot by functions. We used to doing this in SQL, haven't necessarily done this in Excel. So I thought this was really cool. So just real quick to show you what it looks like. I have a data set in here that I just created. And if I wanted to, I'll do this on the fly. So if I want to do my calculations, I can do group by, and then I'll do my category. And then I want to group this column by cells. And then I want to aggregate it. So for this aggregation, what I want to do is do the sum. And then now what it does automatically, it groups my stuff for me in Excel. So really quick way of doing this if you're trying to do any type of exploratory analysis. Of course, you can do this in Power Query. You can do this and do, click, drag, and drop. But having this in Excel, if you understand the group by and pivot by function, makes life a lot easier when you're trying to look at different categories. So a lot of documentation out there, which is really cool. And then similar concept for pivot by. If I wanted to pivot this information, so if I want my subcategories and categories and cells to be pivoted in a certain way, I can come in here and just to show you what this is doing, you would do equals pivot by, and then you would select what you want to pivot by, and then your vertical axis, and then what you want your values to be in your pivot, and then your aggregation. So in this example, I'm just going to have subcategory, category. I want the cells to be my values, and then I want my aggregation to be sum. So if I come in here and hit enter, we'll see now that quickly that it pivoted my information for me, and I have it in here, and then I can quickly do this as a, again, a lookup table. Now I recommend my personal experience. I would say, use this as a way of lookup or, trying to analyze information and kind of ad hoc analysis. I wouldn't necessarily, well, I mean, maybe you could, right? If you're doing a lot of stuff in Excel and you have it in a separate tab, you might be able to do it. But, really just be careful with what you're doing, and then what BI tools, if you're doing any BI tools on top of this, what this can do. So, but these are two cool functions that are available in a couple clicks of a button for you to use. So these were really awesome things that I found. All right, next we have Power Apps updates on here as well. So within Power Apps, a lot of AI stuff, a lot of good AI stuff is going on everywhere. I'm sure everybody's talking about AI all day, every day. Microsoft Power Apps, Fabric, and Power BI is included in that as well. A lot of Copilot stuff going on. There is the ability for Copilot to make field suggestions based on model-driven apps. It's now readily available. And then enterprise-grade governance is there, and then leading and documentation updates. So there's training paths and labs and documentation. So Power Apps is constantly evolving and growing too. And then with that, I will pass it to Christina for her presentation.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
That is a great list of new things. Very excited to see all that. I'll put my camera, I'll share my screen. All right. So full transparency for you guys. I don't know if you guys have noticed from the long list of things that were just announced. Things change constantly in Fabric. So full transparency for you guys, my screenshots are not up to date because fun thing, they just changed the UI for all the real-time analytics things I'm about to show you 2 weeks ago. So we're going to walk through it together. We're going to build from scratch, so it's a little bit risky, but I think we're all going to learn a lot along the way. So I really appreciate you guys going on this journey with me. So go ahead and get in presenter mode. Like Seku mentioned, I am Christina Ferris. I'm a Microsoft MVP for Data Platform and Fabric. I'm also a solution architect over at P3 Adaptive. Have loved working there this year and looking forward to all the cool Fabric projects we're currently working on. So if you have any of those kind of needs, feel free to reach out to me. I'm also a co-organizer for the Lexington Data Technology Group. So if you guys are ever in the Lexington, Kentucky area, feel free to reach out. Would love to grab coffee or even, invite you to one of our user groups. I also co-author on Data on Wheels, which is a blog that my dad and I co-write on. And yeah, feel free to connect. I would love to hear about what you guys are doing in Fabric and real-time analytics and just in general, right? More connections, the better. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or follow me on Twitter. Data Dragon S on Twitter, hence the dragon in this slide and behind me. And no, I did not paint it. I'm really bad at painting. It's just a sticker. So if you want to link to that as well, feel free to let me know. All right, so real-time analytics. What are we talking about today? So what we're going to be covering is kind of a high-level architecture of how we can create a logic gap that's grabbing constantly streaming data from an API, and we're going to load that data into Fabric in a real-time fashion. Now, a lot of times what you're going to see in demos like this is they're going to use the sample data, and that's great for proofs of concepts. It's great for if you really want to get into KQL and you just want to learn that query language. Those options are available to you. We're not going to do that today just because I want you guys to see the whole picture and maybe some of the gotchas that happen along the way with these different arrows that you're not going to figure out using a using a demo data set. So I'm going to show you guys quickly how to make the demo data set, and then we're going to hop into, hey, how do we actually get this data into Fabric if I have a streaming API? What kind of would my next steps be? So we're going to talk briefly about both of those. At a high level, what we're going to do today is we're grabbing data from ISS, the International Space Station. So it's pretty cool. They have a streaming API that's free to use. And so you can recreate all this on your own. I will call out you do need a Fabric capacity. You can use a trial, or I'm using a little baby F2 to demo it. So you can use any of those as like kind of cheap demo sources. And I'm going to pull that in using a logic app in Azure. So this is not in Fabric. And then I'm going to pump the data from that logic app in Azure into an event stream and then into a Power BI dashboard. A Power BI report is more appropriate, but I think in this case, we'll just call it a dashboard because it's live, right? All right. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and talk about some prereqs. Like I mentioned, you do need a Fabric capacity back workspace. You also need a streaming data source. I don't know about you guys, but I am not an app developer. Unfortunately, I couldn't make my own streaming data source. So I found that ISS API, which again, you guys can definitely use as well. So the first step in here is to create a KQL database. Now, what is KQL? Again, that's kind of a whole session in itself, but I do want to inform you guys a little bit of the background here. So KQL is Kusto. It's a Kusto query language. So when you hear Kusto and you hear KQL, those are the same. So it's a fun story, actually. KQL, Kusto itself came from Jacques Cousteau, who was a big explorer. And so the idea was that we're digging into the depths of our data with KQL in a fast way. So they called it Cusco, and that's kind of where the language name gets its name from. So the first thing we're going to do in Fabric is we are going to create a KQL database inside of an event house. Now, this is one of the things that has changed. You used to just be able to make a KQL database. Now it requires you to make the event house and then the database. Again, it's still easy. It's just a couple of clicks and a name. But just wanted to call out that is something different in the process from just 2 weeks ago. So with that, it's time for some live demo, guys. You're going to see a lot of memes from me. I think they make the world go round and they make things a lot faster or a lot more fun. So, all right, with that, let's go ahead and hop in. And I will try and monitor the chat as well. I have it up on another screen. But if you have any questions or Sekou, if you don't mind just letting me know if something pops up and I don't see it, that would be awesome.
Okay, we'll do.
Thanks. All right. So with that, let's go ahead and jump in. First of all, we're going to make our new item. Now, again, this experience has changed over the time. I have a bunch of things favorited because I don't love scrolling down the list. In this case, you can also just search for Event House. So that's what I'm going to do here. You'll notice I do have it favorited. Again, that just makes my life easier. I can find it really quickly without having to go scrolling a bunch. But making our event house, you can have a lot of different ways to do this. I typically recommend prefacing the names of your fabric artifacts with like an abbreviation so you know what the item is. Again, this is for down the road capacity monitoring. You don't have to always figure out what type of item it is that's taking your capacity. You could easily tell by the name. Again, some of that's just my own personal preference. It's just semantics at the end of the day. But I am going to call it Brandywine because I'm a Lord of the Rings fan. So we're going to kind of stick with a theme. You might have noticed that at the top here, I've got Palantir and Nazgul. We'll talk about those in a bit. But for now, we're just going to create our event house. So all I had to do is give it a name saying create, and then it's going to make that for me. It's going to give me a little walkthrough. There's no option right now to get rid of this walkthrough, but I'm sure someday it will go away. But you can see where it's saying, hey, go ahead and start by adding in some data. I'm not going to worry about that too much because that's kind of our next steps. But it did auto create a database for me. So I already have my KQL database and now an event house. Now you might notice my KQL database is named Event House Brandywine essentially. If I want to change that, I really can't. It's unfortunate. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to make a new one and we're going to call it KQL just so I know what it is. And then Brandywine in here. So we'll make it a new database. We'll hit create. And this is where we're going to actually load our data in. Now, again, it made this one by default. That's something that a lot of the Fabric team has gotten feedback on about making defaulted things. So we'll see if that changes in the future. All right. With that said, let's go ahead and hop back in here. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we are going to create an event stream. Now, an event stream, we're going to create it kind of in a couple of chunks just because what it needs is it needs not only the source, but the destination. So creating it is going to allow us to push data from our source into the event stream. It's a little bit confusing, just kind of the order of operations here. Technically, I already have a logic app made for this. So in theory, I wouldn't need to do it in this order. I could already connect my custom app to it. But I just want to show you guys like from scratch what this is going to look like. So if I go back to this architecture diagram real quick, I'll kind of talk about where we're going right now. So again, we're kind of starting in the middle, right? I just made this KQL database. We're about to make our event stream. And once we have our event stream, then we can make our logic app and have it push data to our event stream. Unfortunately, we can't really, it's a chicken and egg kind of problem. I could start with the logic app and then it would just fail on all of its runs until I connected it to an event stream. That's kind of what I have right now. But for us, what I'm going to show you guys is, hey, we're making our event stream, then we'll have basically the destination for our logic app to push to. So that's kind of the order of operations here. All right, so going back, we're going to make two event streams because we have two sources of data. We're going to grab the astronauts that are on the ISS station, and we're going to grab the actual location of the ISS. So we are going to create two event streams in order to do this. And yeah, then we'll make that custom app after this. And I promised you lots of memes. So this one is just sweating. But you guys don't have to be near me. So this is a good time to get this demo. No, just kidding. All right, so hopping back out here, let's go and make our first event stream. So again, I've got one down here testing. This is the biggest UI change that I've experienced so far. So I'm going to walk you guys through what I've figured out in case this is something that you're also experiencing if you've played around with event streams at all. So I'm going to go ahead and create my event stream. Again, I like to name things. So we'll do ES, and then we're going to pull in our astronaut data first. So I have appropriately called them the Nazgul because they're flying over the Earth. See, we can have fun, guys. Nobody else sees this, just us. So I'm going to go ahead and hit create. I got no CFO yelling at me for what I'm naming my event streams, right? Now, this is the confusing part for a lot of folks. So like I said, you can use sample data. This is where you can just click this button and you can skip the logic app portion we're going to talk about next. You click this, it's going to basically allow you to pick from sample data sets and you can stream sample data. Now, again, that's not bad. That's not terrible, especially if you're trying to build out a demo. But for our cases, we're going to use a custom endpoint because it's likely going to be more closer to what you might end up actually needing to use. So I want to show you some of the tricks with that. You do have the ability for an external source. Again, these names are not great. The external sources are going to be Azure connections. So think Azure event houses, right? We just made an event house, but it's a Fabric event house. You see where this can get a little confusing really quick? So my advice is if you have a streaming data source, click through the external sources options and see if it matches what you're currently using. If not, then go with the custom endpoint. And what I'm about to show you will walk you through how to connect your streaming data source to this. So again, I'm going to create this and we're going to call it Logic App Nazgul. One other feedback I like to give Microsoft is that they should be really consistent about when underscores are allowed versus dashes. It drives me just a little bit mad, but it's okay. It's fine. I'm not in charge. All right, so we're going to go ahead and add. Now, one thing that is different, this is the biggest difference, that for a moment I was actually terrified earlier today that I would not be able to give this presentation, because in the past, right now, I would be able to find some connection strings that I can use in my Logic app. You might notice all I see down here are authoring errors. It's not actually useful for me when I'm trying to author. So again, feedback. I'll be giving lots of feedback to Microsoft about these things. I recommend you do so as well. But what I actually have to do is now come over to a new button called Publish. Super intuitive. I definitely figured that out after a couple hours. But I'm going to go ahead and hit Publish. And once I publish, now when I click on this, I see my connection strings that I was expecting before. So in case you weren't sure, this is vital. I need to have this Event Hub keys because this is what I'm going to pass into my Logic app, and this is what you would likely pass into any other application that you were using to push streaming data. All right, so with that, I'm going to hop back into our slides. This is a lot of back and forth, so I appreciate you guys coming with me for the ride. Again, I've paid my fee of memes, so hopefully you can forgive me a little bit. All right, so Logic Apps, this is the next step. So like I said, we're kind of going backwards, right? We already built our Event Hub with our KQL database. We just built an event stream, which I think I have to build one more, but we'll do that next, and you can kind of see how they connect to each other. So I've built my Event Hub, or my Event House with my KQL database, and then I've built my streaming, which should connect to my Event Hub. Now I'm building the Logic app that grabs my streaming data and sends it over to Fabric for me. So that's the next step. So I'm building all this inside of the Azure portal. I have a subscription that I'm using to pay for all this. Again, this whole thing maybe cost me $5 a month. Depends on how many times I'm demoing. But if you want to set up a F2 capacity, I highly recommend it. You can also use trial capacities for the Fabric pieces, but the Logic apps, you do need to have a subscription that it can use to process these requests. So with that, it only costs a few cents. I'm not worried about it. If it's something you need to stand up, I highly recommend it. Now, The second bit here, you'll notice I say don't forget to add the body of the HTTP response to the send event action. That is because I forgot that step many, many times in a row giving this presentation. At this point, I just have it pre-built and we're going to look at the result because I want to spend more time on the actual Fabric components than in this logic app section. But feel free to steal this code. I'm going to have it all on a GitHub. And so what I want is you guys to be able to learn from everything I've done and be accelerated in your learning of real-time analytics. So please steal from me. I'm happy to share. Feel free to reach out to me later if you want some advice on how to set this kind of thing up. All right. Again, the other thing in here is a consumption plan. I am not an Azure, I'm not an Azure admin expert as far as what all the different plans mean, but I know that for these kind of things, it has to be under a consumption plan, and that's a setting when you set up the logic app. So again, I'm trying to call out things that, you know, if you're setting this up on your own later on, I don't want you to miss it because it's something that I've missed in the past. So feel free to steal from my mistakes, basically. All right, folks, brace yourself. This is one of the larger demo sections, so we're going to be hopping into the next part of this live demo. Go. I am going to go ahead and go into the event stream section next and connect it all together, just because, you know, some of these slides are meant to be steps for you to follow, because I am going to give you guys this slide deck at the end of the presentation. But we're going to go ahead and skip through those two slides and just connect it all. All right. Whew. All right. With that, let's go ahead and hop into our logic app. So as promised, I have one called Nazgul. You'll notice I have some failed attempts here, but I'm just going to hop into my logic app designer. If you have seen Power Automate, this is going to feel very familiar. In my opinion, they did a lot in logic apps that they maybe could have done in Power Apps. Things like really easy pop outs on the side. I know they have some of that in the new experience, and I'm really excited to see it. But just want to call out to you guys kind of what this looks like. So for recording purposes, I am going to show you guys briefly the code view. Okay. And basically what this allows me to do is if I wanted to, I can just edit here. Again, something I wish Power Apps let me do. So if you guys want to, what I've done in the GitHub is I've downloaded this and put it into the GitHub so you can just plop it into a logic app and you'll be good to go. So again, just want to call that out to you guys. Let's go ahead and go back to the regular designer so we can walk through these steps. Now, the key with a streaming data set is you need something that tells it how many times I want it to run. In this case, the Nazgul one is just giving me the astronaut list. That's not going to change very often. So I'm going to set it for 15 minutes because I actually don't need it running that much. The next one we're going to make is going to be the Palantir, which is actually our locations of the ISS station. And that one is going to run every 5 seconds because I want that to run pretty consistently. All right, so let's go ahead and pop in here. The next step is to have the HTTP call. So what this is it's basically saying, hey, let's go ahead and get that astronaut information from this API. Again, feel free to use this. There's no headers that you need, no authentication that we need. So it's just a pretty easy setup where I just plop that in. The last piece is where we need those connection strings. So you can see I've got content body in here because I need to grab the data from my HTTP call, and I'm going to move it into my event hub, which is actually this streaming data set. Again, this took a long time to figure out. I wish Microsoft would have done a better job with their documentation or with their naming to make this really easy to follow. Because like I said, this is called an event hub, but in Fabric, this is called streaming data set, right? So when we're talking about the stream, that is what Azure is referring to as the event hub. So event hub, event, you know, a lot of event names. It's really fun. So event hub, event house, it's really easy to keep track of. I'm sure none of you have had any problems. Thankfully, in here, it does tell you, hey, by the way, this is an event hub protocol that you can use. It's like, oh, good. Okay, cool. I know what I want to do with that. So we're going to grab our event hub name from here. we're going to go back to this one and we're going to plop that name in. The next thing I need to do is make a different connection. So we're going to do that now. I'm going to hit add connection. Connection name, this is where I like to say like, hey, event stream, and we're going to call it Brandy, or we're going to call it Nazgul. And we're going to use an access key. I can get those access keys down here. You can see we have connection primary string. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that and pop it in here and hit create new. All right. So with that, let's go ahead and save, and then we'll run it and see what we got. Let's run. And then we'll go to our run history. All right, we have a failure here. Let's go ahead and see. It says we have a bad request. So we have our event string, and then we have our content. 400 error. Okay, connection string parameter. All right, let me go back into our Logic App Designer, and I apologize, guys. I didn't used to have to do this part from scratch because it had worked previously, but when they changed the UI for these event streams, it broke all of my event streams. So let me go ahead and just triple check that our event hub name is correct. And then we will check these, should be fine. Content, and we'll add our header back in. Body, there we go. Save. Change connection. Let's go ahead and edit this. I don't think it's going to let me edit it, so we will add another new one. All right, it would be great. I'm not sure that this works. We're going to try it out. Event hubs, namespace, endpoint. Okay. Namespace, endpoint. Not seeing that as an option here. So we're going to hop back in and we're going to switch back to the access key. So we're looking for the event hubs connection string. We tried our primary string. I'm going to copy this guy and just triple check that that's what pops in here. Right, create new. Right, let's hit save, and then we'll try running it again. If this doesn't work, I will try and sneak ahead, but just wanted to, again, give you guys that disclaimer at the beginning, just because I haven't had a chance to test all this out since they changed all that UI. Let's go ahead and hop back here. Oh, succeeded. Oh, I didn't even need to apologize that much. I take it all back. No, just kidding. All right, so we have a success. Yay. Okay. So what I think might have happened, and this has happened to me before, is I copied them in a different order than I thought. And so I likely put the Event Hub name into our connection instead of the actual connection string. Again, copy and paste errors galore, but it works. So we've sent an event. Let's go ahead and hop back in here. Now that we've sent an event, let's go ahead and refresh this. We should be able to get a data preview. Again, this right now is in what's called live view. Hey, there we go. We got some data. We have people that are on the ISS spacecraft right now. Pretty cool. Again, I'm a sucker for things that are not necessarily pre-baked. And so, you know, there's a lot more risk involved, but it's way more rewarding. So let's go ahead and hop back into the edit view. I wish I could just edit it right here. Oh, it did. It transformed me into edit view. Oh, perfect. Okay. Now, again, this is where my slight frustrations are because I don't know why they even have the two views, but I digress. I'm going to come in here and connect it. If you remember, we were getting data from our Logic app. We've got it in our event stream now. I need to get it into my event house, my KQL database. in order for me to report off of it in a Power BI report. So we're going to do that next. I'm going to go into Event House, and you can see I have some options here. I want some direct ingestion. We're going to make the name just Event House Brandywine, again with the hyphens. All right, so this is my fabric of Middle Earth. Pick my Event House, and we're going to pick our KQL Brandywine database. If I hit save, we should be good to go. We're going to publish it now because saving once is not enough. Have to publish it. All right, so successfully published. And because this one is on a 15-minute interval, boom, all right. What I'm going to do is I am going to push it again. So go back into our Logic App Designer and hit run. Right, go back in here and hit refresh, and we'll see if it loads in some data for us. It's trying to figure it out. Okay, while it figures that out, let's go ahead and hit configure. There we go. Right, new table. We're calling it Nazgul because why not? All right, we'll hit next. It's going to try and load in our data. Found 2 events. This is good. This is great. All right. So what I actually want to do is, you can see it did a couple of things for me. I can have it, reorder these columns. I'm going to parse this later, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. My format is JSON. That's great. If I want to edit my columns, I can do that. I can say, hey, you know what? I actually don't want this number column, or maybe I want things renamed. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and keep it as is. And let's go ahead and hit finish. Exciting times. All right, so we're going to hit close. And that is now active, guys. We are officially pulling data into our Event House. Yay. Okay, so the next one we're going to do is going to be rinse and repeat, but we're going to do it for Palantir, and we're not going to have that break with the PowerPoint slides. All right, we're just going to run through it all so we can see it end to end. So we're going to hop back into our workspace, and we're going to create a new item. We're going to create a new event stream. And this one is going to be called ES and then Palantir. If you're not familiar with Lord of the Rings, then that's totally fine. But if you ever want to fix that problem with your life, please let me know. I'm down for a 12-hour marathon any day of the week. The Palantir is essentially something that they look into, and they can see the world, right? There's something about that where it can see into the hearts. You can see and communicate with the other stones. It's pretty powerful. So the idea with this one is that we can see the ISS location over the world. So pretty fun. The Power BI report for this looks really sick because we can actually see the dots move every 5 seconds. So we'll get to that today. I'm pretty confident. So, all right. I say that and all my babbling, there we go. I was like, it should be loading up soon, so you don't have to hear me ramble on about Lord of the Rings too much longer. Go. Custom endpoint. Again, we give it a name. I'm going to call it Logic App dash Palantir. Yep. And all right, have to hit publish in order to see what I want. I go back in here. I'm going to go and grab my authentication keys. Again, first, I'm going to grab the name. So I've copied the name. We're going to hop back in here. And again, this one is just a 5-second interval. And you can see it's a different API call. It's ISS now instead of Astro now. So just slightly different API call. In the send event, I'm going to put my event hub name in there. And then we're going to change the connection. We'll create a new connection. If I come over to Fabric again, I'm going to grab the connection string. I'm going to grab the second one that seemed to work for us last time. Right, it says it's been copied. paste that in there and just triple check. Looks right. Okay. I'm happy with that. And we'll give it a name, ES Palantir. Create new. Not now. All right. So it says we're all connected up. I'm going to hit save. All right. Cross your fingers and toes, my friends. We're going to click run. And we're going to go to the run history. Oh, success. Sweet success, my friends. Look at this. All right. So we are already getting quite a bit of info because it's running every 5 seconds from the time that it succeeded. So we're going to pop back in here. If I go to the stream, if I hit refresh, we should get quite a few records in here already, which we're going to load into our event house. Again, they did not want to call it an event fort. I feel like that would have been better because EH and EH for event hub, event house. I think that's a little confusing, but I am not in the naming department and they probably don't want me there because I would just be naming things crazy all the time. Because if you're not doing that, I feel like you're not doing your job very well. It's just not as fun. All right. Come on, buddy. There it is. All right. So we've got some latitude and longitude positions. We've also got some information about what time. This is great. This is awesome stuff. This is exactly what I was expecting to see and what we can easily report off of. So the next step is we're going to come back in here. It flipped me to edit mode. I don't know if you guys saw the color change in the back slightly to this little yellow. But from here, oh gosh, we've got so many events coming in. So exciting. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and select Event House. You might have noticed Lake House is also an option on here. But Event House is going to be better for real-time data because KQL is really good at just processing loads and loads of data instantly. So highly recommend if you actually need real-time streaming, go with an Event House and over a Lake House. So let's go ahead and do direct ingestion again. We're going to call this Event House Brandywine. We'll select our workspace again and our KQL database, hit save, and then we'll have to configure it after we publish it. But we can't do that from here until we publish it. Again, super fun UI little quirks. Fabric changes literally every day. I highly recommend that when you're playing around with this stuff, have something that you just go back and look at maybe once a month and look at how things have changed. Because it will have changed. I can pretty much guarantee it. All right, so we'll call this Palantir. Right, good stuff. Hit next. Somebody asked me if I thought that Fabric was production ready. I do believe for non-mission critical workloads, it is production ready. If you are looking to do this for, say, your entire ERP, I think that once the new Fabric SQL option is no longer in preview, that will be a good indicator of when it is ready for production level workloads. That's not to say that it couldn't work for Power BI production workloads. When I say mission critical, I mean things that will literally shut down your business if they do not work. So for me, as far as reporting goes, if my report isn't perfect for one day, that's acceptable, right? For a lot of businesses, obviously not every day, but for maybe one day out of a month, that's not so bad. If my company's website went down for a day, that would be a problem. So again, that's where I kind of draw the line as to what I would put in Fabric and not. Real-time analytics for a lot of people is not mission critical. It's something like a great to have, right? A little bit above a nice to have, but not quite necessary. And so this is a great time to begin exploring with it and start learning how to use it and what it's useful for, because the results are pretty amazing. So. And once you have it set up, you don't have to set it up again. So that's also a huge win here. All right. It is having a struggle bus moment. Come on, buddy. I know you want to work for us. We want to see this happen in Power BI. I have my report all ready to go. It's just waiting for the connection strings. So What are we working on? What are we crunching? Wonder if it's just too much data flowing in right now. See if we format it, JSON, advanced, right? We're gonna give it a few more seconds and then I'll cancel it and try it again. Sometimes these things just get hung up. When in doubt, go with the IT crowd route. Here we go. All right, so it gave us a failure on that one. So we're just gonna rename this to Palantir Astronauts in case it's having a naming issue. So maybe it didn't, yeah, there it goes. Okay, so that worked. That's how fast I expect it to pop up. If you have a similar hang up, try exiting, coming back in, and then renaming it, because if you just come back in, you'll likely get an error code because somewhere in the metadata, it has already made a Palantir table. It just can't show it to you for some reason. So don't worry about it too much. We're going to go ahead and hit finish here. Create that data connection. Boom, and then close. All right, so now we should have data flowing into there. So if I go into our event house, let's go ahead and see these tables. We've got the Nazgul, Palantir Astronauts. So this has data in it. I'm going to push from Nazgul one more time because, again, this one is just a little bit slower as far as its timeline. Hit run. Why not? Why are you having problems, my friend? There it goes. Okay. All right, good stuff. So if I hit this one again, it found the data there. All right, perfect. Good deal. All right, now you might notice this language is different than SQL. Yes, it's true. It's unfortunate, but it is very different than T-SQL. Now, there are a lot of resources out there on what these different things are, how to run them. The biggest thing that's going to help you is if you go underneath KQL tools, you'll see we've got duplicate query, we've got open command palette. There is also an option, if I remember right. Oh, you know what? Hang on. Again, with the UI differences, I'm really sorry, guys. I know that there used to be a way for it to convert your SQL into KQL. You can also do that in ChatGPT. I've done that a few times. I've also got a whole section of them. So if I go in here, ISS queries KQL, and we'll just open it here. You guys can see I've got a number of sample data calls for you to run. Things like getting a range of data, aggregating, filtering by time. So things that are great examples for you guys if you're trying to learn KQL. I've got some noted versions of these queries that can make it easy to understand what's happening. So, all right, with that, let's do the fun part, right? Like, let's load this into Power BI. Let's see this data actually run. So what we're going to do is we can click this Power BI button from right here and it'll open Power BI. I can also come in here and grab the actual URL. What I'm going to do is click on this Power BI button just because I want to see what our options are here. So you can see it's made me a blank Power BI report. That is awesome. I can hit save. I can fit to page. I'm going to go ahead and take a peek at this. So if I hit save this report, it'll give me some workspaces, right? Pretty nifty. I'm going to call this ISS. hit continue, and we're going to put this into our Fabric of Middle Earth workspace. Oh, okay. I'll make it a different name. Sample. Go, continue. No need to overthink the names. I will say, as you kind of get into this business of Fabric, if you are looking into how to build things out from scratch, I highly recommend sitting down with your team and coming up with a naming convention, because it will save your team hours of time trying to think of names. So things like, do we put underscores? Do we have a certain naming convention for different areas of the business? Do we have like the event house, EH prefix? What do we want to do with that? Definitely going to save your team a lot of time. All right, so let's go ahead and download this one so we can see what it's doing in the background. Now, again, I have made a Power BI report sample. I just want to show you guys what this looks like if you're starting from scratch, and kind of easy, quick ways to get started. So with this, I would already have my data loaded in. I'm going to go ahead and sign in. It will make you sign in every time that you open the report because it is live streaming data. So it requires authentication fairly often when you are working with it on your desktop. So let's go ahead and go into transform data. And you'll see that we get this handy list, which I can pull out and convert to table. Select some delimiters, none. And let's go ahead and open that record. And then now I have my names in my craft. Pretty awesome. What I'm really curious about from this perspective is I want my source. So I'm going to steal the source from here and put it into my other report. So if I go into my existing report, you'll notice I have a couple of parameters. I've got the CustoDB URL and the CustoDB name. I'm going to grab the cluster from here, and we're going to put that in the URL. Again, a lot of this has changed slightly, but some things stay the same. So my database is still going to be the Brandywine one. And let's go ahead and look at this source. So I've got this coming from a table called ISS locations. We have changed that name to the Palantir. So let me go back into astronauts and we'll just name this Nazgul. All right. So again, I've got some queries in here, but some of this data has changed. So let me go ahead and drop this line. There we go. All right. Now, you might have noticed in this version, I had to parse out the list of people and get it to a state where it looks like I have craft and name. In this example, because I used a KQL query instead, it actually parsed it for me. So I still only have the one step. You'll notice that what I've done here is I've expanded the people object. So similar to a Power Query step, instead, I can just have it load in as a native query. So pretty cool stuff. Again, if you are working with this stuff and you're like, what's the most optimal way? Should I do it in Power Query? Should I do it in KQL? My recommendation is, the Roach's maxim. You push it upstream as far as possible and downstream as necessary. Sometimes what that means is I don't know KQL, so I'm going to do my changes in Power Query. Sometimes what that means is, hey, I think KQL can run this faster. I'm going to put it in KQL instead of Power Query. So in my case, I put it in KQL instead of Power Query because it is faster. But let's go ahead and we're going to make these things into text fields. And we're going to go ahead and enable load. Okay. All right. So ISS location, we need to fix this one. So again, it's grabbing from a table named ISS locations. That's no longer correct because we renamed it to Palantir. Did we rename that to Palantir astronauts? Because I wasn't thinking very clearly. That's very possible. All right. So we're going to come back into our Brandywine event house. And let's see. Yep, Palantir astronauts. So sorry, guys. Should have renamed that to something else because this is not actually our astronaut data. But c'est la vie, right? There we go. we'll figure that out. So again, I'm just going to show you guys what this KQL looks like. It's actually really simple KQL, but I ran into an issue with it when I was trying to load it in previously. One thing I ran into was it refused. Some of them refused to give me any answers without this right here. Now, what this line is essentially, if I were to put this in T-SQL, it would just be sum1, the number 1. It's summarizing absolutely no fields in the query, but what it allows it to do is return it in a tabular format into, if you're familiar with Python, like a data frame, a rectangle of data. Without this, it's not quite sure how you want the data back. So you'll notice here I do have something like render scatter chart. I'm going to show you guys what that looks like. If I go into, obviously it didn't do anything in Power BI, but if I go back into here and I hit query table, it gives me some options. I can even do, SQL in here. But let's say I just go ahead and do get table schema. We're going to change this to the one that I just copied and hit run. It makes a visual of the map. So pretty cool. It's like gone ahead and rendered my positions over the map. But Power BI, I think, produces better visuals than KQL. Plus, I want people to be able to look at it and explore it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hop back into here, and we are going to make sure that this one also works. I think I just need to change this to astronauts, and then we'll see. So it didn't find event in queue UTC time. If I go back here, we can see kind of why is because that name got changed to timestamp. So I'm going to come back in here. And sorry, guys, you're seeing how the sausage gets made a bit, but hopefully it's a little bit helpful if you run into something similar in the future. You can see again, I've got this silly sum column. I don't understand, but it really required it. I promise, guys, without this, it didn't actually give me a table back. So part of why I give these kind of sessions is because I want to help people who are in the same place as me, who might not know KQL like the back of their hand, who might not understand why everything works the way it does, and just give you guys the tools that work for me, so we can all be in the best position possible. All right, so with that, I'm going to close and apply. All right, there it goes. All right, so cool thing, we can see where exactly the ISS is located right now. It is off the coast of Ecuador and Peru. So you can see it's getting pretty close. If I go to the orbit one, this one is going to show the full like 90-minute orbit. So it's got a much longer tail on it. The purple is our current one. If I hover over it, you can see it tells me what astronauts are in space right now. So pretty cool. I can see who's up there. If I zoom out a little bit, every 5 seconds this will change. And that's a lot more apparent in this one right here. So every 5 seconds, I can see the location of this guy moving throughout over the Earth. Now, if I had set this up a little bit earlier in our session, you would actually see the full orbit. It kind of goes like a sine wave all the way over the world. So it's pretty neat to build this kind of stuff up. But yeah, if you're curious how I got this working, I have a Azure Maps is what this is using. So you can see it's just putting in my latitude and longitude. And then in the tooltips, I've got it looking at a page called Astronauts. That's just over here. And it's just giving a list of the astronauts. The other cool thing with this one is I've got it set on an auto page refresh. If you are using direct query, you need to turn on auto page refresh. What this will do, again, this is loading every 5 seconds, which is why you see it keep shifting. If you don't have this on, what's going to happen is your end users have to actually hit like the little refresh button in the Power BI service. So I'm going to publish this, hit save. Also, just so you guys know, I am publishing this version of everything into my GitHub after our call today. Because what I want you guys to be able to do is pull down exactly what we use. I don't want you guys to have any old versions of anything, especially with how often this changes. So I want to make sure it's useful. So gonna go ahead. That's published. Let's go back in here to this one. Again, pretty cool. This is just going to change every 5 seconds. If I didn't have that auto page refresh on, I would have to manually hit this refresh button every time I open my browser. So again, just something to keep in mind if you're already using Direct Query or if that's something that you want to use in the future. So, all right, with that, I'm gonna hop back into our slides. Does it list the stranded Boeing astronauts? That is a great question. Let's take a peek here. I don't think so. So if I go into make a new page, we'll just grab a table with the astronauts. It's got the craft listed that they're on. So I don't know what the name of the Boeing one was, but if it was, you know, Tiangong, then maybe it does grab them. But pretty cool. All right. I'm gonna hop back into this guy just so you guys can see a little bit of KQL, and then we'll have some time for questions. So querying the data, again, KQL is not SQL. There are 3 types of KQL queries: tabular, let, and set. They are what they sound like. If you are creating a tabular query, it's going to create a table of data. If you use the let and set, they will not create a tabular set of data. So set is basically setting up or setting, how do I say this? You think of an update function in SQL, it's very similar to set in KQL. And let is going to be more like setting up temp tables, those types of things. So just keep that in mind. Focus on tabular for what you guys are going to need. Again, it's basically in the format of a table name, and then you have operator statements with the pipe delimiter in front of them. If you don't have the pipe, it won't run it. But just keep that in mind. That's what it's doing. We kind of already looked at that. We also looked at this Power BI report. I've got a better screenshot of it here a little bit. I used to have it run every 90 minutes, and you can kind of see the path that it took, which is kind of cool, right? So the longer I have this up, the longer it's going to pull in data, and we can really get a full picture of the ISS tracking. All right, we did show you the demo, you know. All right, so I'll open it up for questions. I'm also going to leave this up for a little bit, so feel free to grab that GitHub link. I'll put it in the chat as well. But yeah, any questions, guys? Any questions, concerns, comments, or you know, excitement? No. Yeah, Jeremy.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Christina. That was really great. I'm gonna try this out later. But I don't know if I missed it, but did you say which kind of logic app do you need to make?
Yes. So that is in here. So actually let me grab this guy. So when you're making it, it has to be a consumption plan logic app. So let me go and I'll show you guys now that we have a demo that works, right? I feel much more confident in our skills here. If I go into logic app and I create a new one, you can see we've got some options here, but it has to be consumption. So if I go under the consumption plan, you can see it's got all these options, but again, it has to be consumption. I'm not entirely sure why that is. The only thing I can think of is that it has to be under this public cloud network for the way that I'm running it, because I'm not passing in any other credentials with the VNet integrations or with certain local network access. So if you are under a different plan, you will. I don't have anything set up to solve that, to solve the VNet pass by, if that makes sense.
I see.
So-
So that doesn't really, I mean, it doesn't really cost any extra money, right? The consumption one?
No, it's pretty cheap. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, if I select this, it will make me connect it to a resource group and a subscription. So if you want, let me go ahead and go back and let's see how much these have cost me. If I go in here, I should be able to see it. I might have spoken out of turn there. I know that there's a way to see your budget and to see. Let me see if I can figure out what subscription this is on. Okay. It's under this guy. And sorry, guys, you're gonna have to see what I pay. It's unfortunate. I've got nothing in here that's for a real business, which is why I'm okay showing it on a live demo. But let's go ahead and show, or on a recorded session, I should say. So if I come into cost analysis, I should be able to see my cost by resource group. Let's take a peek at what that says. So I've got my astronauts data group, and see, let's just make sure it didn't end up in here. No, it should not have. So these are just my fabric capacities. This is going to be my logic app. If I come into this, you can see it's cost me under a cent. Yeah. If I go back a month, October, it cost me less than a cent. This month, it's going to cost me less than a cent. And we've just been running it pretty often. So just something to keep in mind. Yeah, it's pretty much free. Yeah. But it does require you to connect it to a subscription and a resource group. So you will need access to both of those things in order to create one. So yeah, good question. Any other questions? All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. I put the link into the chat. I'm going to make a new folder as soon as we get off this call, and it will have the name of this user group, and it'll probably pop up near the top. So that folder will contain both all the slides, the code for the logic apps, the KQL queries used in the Power BI report, and the Power BI PBX file. So that should be enough to make you dangerous in this, along with the recording.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Christina. That was fantastic. That was awesome.
Yeah, no problem.
KQL is like explicit word.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was great to see it in action and how you got it. So I learned a ton. So really appreciate you taking time out today to do that. So appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm actually just really glad it worked. There was quite a few moments this morning where I was a little petrified. I was gonna have to email you and be like, I'll talk about it, but it doesn't work.
No, that was perfect. So we got through it. Cool. Awesome. Marketing as well. Follow Christina on all her platforms. Hit her up on LinkedIn. Connect to her. Like, great person to be in contact with. So thank you again.
I'll also be in Atlanta. So.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Wrapping up today's meetup. Thanks everybody again for taking time out. Again, you could have done anything today. You could have ate sandwiches or looked at something else, or even watched Ignite, but you all were here, so we really appreciate it. Next event we're aiming for is a Christmas holiday thing, December 12th. So be on the lookout. We'll send that information out as soon as somebody contacts me. So as soon as I get information, y'all will have it, and then we'll go from there. Otherwise, y'all have a great rest of the week. Check out Ignite. There's a lot of great stuff. Go on the website, check it out, and have a great day.